I never could have imagined how one single night could unravel 2 decades of love, trust, and shared experiences. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Emma, my wife, and I had been together since our early 20s. We'd built a life full of laughter, memories, and dreams we'd made together. From buying our first home to raising 2 beautiful children, we weathered the storms of life side by side. Or so I thought. Emma had always been the adventurous one in our relationship. She thrived on trying new things, meeting new people, and pushing boundaries, while I preferred the comfort of routine and stability. Over the years, her spark was one of the things I cherished most about her. But sometimes, even the brightest sparks can set off fires you never see coming. The idea of a permitted one-night stand had been a joke between us during the early years of our marriage. It was the kind of playful conversation couples have when they're still in their honeymoon phase, never imagining it could turn into reality. One free pass, she'd said with a teasing smile, but only if it's Idris Elba. I'd laughed it off, thinking it was harmless banter. After all, love and trust were the foundation of our relationship, weren't they? Fast forward a few months, and those words came back to haunt me. Emma had begun acting differently. It started small, longer hours at work, more nights out with friends, and an unusual guardedness when it came to her phone. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was busy, and we both had our own lives to handle. But the little things started to add up. A sudden focus on fitness, a new wardrobe, and an excitement in her that had nothing to do with our life together. Something wasn't right. One evening, while we were sitting together on the couch watching TV, she casually mentioned a coworker's birthday party she was planning to attend. "It's nothing big," she said, scrolling through her phone, "just a few drinks with colleagues. I won't be out too late." Her tone was light, but the way she avoided making eye contact set off a quiet alarm in my mind. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my stomach tightened. The night of the party, Emma looked breathtaking. She wore a sleek black dress that fit her figure perfectly, paired with heels she hadn't worn in years. She looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with, but something about her felt distant, like she was dressing for someone else. "You look amazing," I said, trying to mask my unease. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks," she replied, grabbing her purse. "Don't wait up." The hours ticked by as I sat in the living room, pretending to watch a movie while my mind raced. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Having a great time. Don't worry. Love you." It should have reassured me, but it didn't. The message felt forced, like she was writing it out of obligation, not affection. By midnight, she still wasn't home. I called her once, twice, 3 times, but each time it went straight to voicemail. My heart pounded as I tried to convince myself there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe she lost track of time. Maybe her phone had died. But the darker thoughts crept in, and I couldn't push them away. When Emma finally walked through the door at 1:30 a.m., I was waiting. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly disheveled, and her eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen in years. "You're still up?" she asked, surprised. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "How was the party?" She hesitated for the briefest moment before answering. "It was fun. Just the usual office gossip and bad karaoke." She kissed me on the cheek and headed upstairs, leaving me there with my suspicions growing, like a storm on the horizon. In the following weeks, the distance between us grew. Emma seemed happier, but not in a way that included me. She was distracted, always on her phone, or finding excuses to stay late at work. One night, as she showered, I found myself staring at her phone on the bedside table. I hated the idea of invading her privacy, but the nagging doubts were unbearable. With trembling hands, I unlocked her phone using the passcode I had known for years. My breath caught in my throat when I opened her messages. There at the top was a thread of text between her and someone named Adam. My stomach churned as I read through their exchanges, inside jokes, late night confessions, and a message that shattered my world. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was this the permitted one-night stand we had joked about all those years ago? Had she taken it seriously after all this time? My hands trembled as I put the phone back down and sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness. I could barely catch my breath, my mind swirling with confusion. All I could do was wait for Emma to emerge from the shower and face her with the truth I had just uncovered. When she stepped out, looking calm and relaxed with damp hair and her robe loosely tied, I sat there, heart hammering in my chest, gripping her phone tightly in my hand. She immediately noticed my tension. Her smile faltered. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice cautious. I took a shaky breath, my hands trembling as I held up the phone. "Who's Adam?" I asked, keeping my voice low but controlled. Her face went ashen, and for a moment she didn't respond. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, each second driving the pain of betrayal deeper into my chest. Finally, she whispered, "It's not what you think, Ben."
I gave a bitter laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. Not what I think. So, last night was amazing. Does it mean what it clearly does? Don't insult me, Emma. She slowly sank onto the bed, her hands clasped tightly together in her lap. It was just a mistake, she said, her voice small. A one-time thing. It didn't mean anything. Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. The woman I had trusted, the one I had loved for 2 decades, was now admitting to a betrayal I never saw coming. A mistake, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Emma, we've been married for 20 years. We've built a life, a family. How could you throw all of that away for a mistake? She looked at me with tears in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were tears of regret or self-pity. We talked about this, she said quietly. Remember? Years ago, we joked about a free pass. I thought maybe it would be okay. That it wouldn't hurt you. Her words stung, cutting deeper than anything I could have imagined. You thought it wouldn't hurt me? I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. How could you think that? How could you think I'd be okay with this? She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I'm sorry, Ben, she said, her voice cracking. I really am. I wasn't thinking clearly. It was just, I don't know what came over me. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to make sense of her words. Who is he? I demanded. Someone from work, she replied, her eyes fixed on the floor. It's over, though. It didn't mean anything. And it's done. Please, Ben, can we just move past this? Her voice trembled as she looked at me with pleading eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, as my mind replayed every moment of our life together. I thought about our years of marriage, the promises we had made, and the life we had built. And then I thought about Adam, about the texts I had read, about the trust that had been shattered beyond repair. The next morning, I left the house before Emma woke up. I needed space. Time to think. I wasn't sure I could face her just yet. I ended up at my best friend Mark's house, the one person I felt I could turn to. He opened the door, bleary-eyed but immediately concerned when he saw the look on my face. Ben, what's going on? He asked, stepping aside to let me in. I collapsed onto his couch, my hands still shaking, as I told him everything. He listened quietly, his expression shifting from shock to anger to sympathy as I spoke. Man, I'm so sorry, he said when I finished. I can't even imagine what you're going through. I nodded, staring at the floor. I don't know what to do, Mark. I love her, but I don't think I can ever forgive her for this. How do you move past something like this? He sighed, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I don't know, Ben. That's something only you can decide. But whatever you do, you don't have to go through it alone. I'm here for you. Over the next few days, Emma and I barely spoke. She tried to reach out, leaving notes and sending texts, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time I looked at her, all I saw was betrayal. Finally, after a week of silence, I sat her down and told her the truth. "I can't do this, Emma," I said, my voice breaking. "I can't look at you without seeing him. I can't trust you anymore." She cried, begging me to reconsider, but my mind was made up. "You made your choice," I said. "Now I have to make mine." The divorce was long and painful. Dividing 20 years of a shared life into separate piles felt like tearing pieces of myself away. But as difficult as it was, it also brought a sense of freedom. I realized that staying with Emma would mean living in the shadow of her betrayal, and I wasn't willing to do that. I deserved more. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I leaned on friends and family, rediscovered hobbies I had forgotten about, and slowly began to heal. The pain of Emma's betrayal didn't vanish overnight, but it became more manageable with time. I learned to let go of the anger and resentment, not for her sake, but for mine. As I stood on the other side of the storm, I realized something important. Sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do.